I remember being in my early 20s thinking, wow, if I just made that amount, I would be more than content. And guess what? 8 years later, I'm making that amount and I'm like, I need double. Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And as long as we look to these external things to make us content, we will never be content.
Because it's not about the stuff. And that's what the Haiti and the Malawi like perspectives that we brought into this conversation like teach us, and what they in many ways I'd say sort of like prove.
Yeah.
It's the stuff doesn't bring contentment.
Scott, what's up, man? Welcome to the Grove Collective podcast.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, we're here week 2 of our new season.
Yes, the new series.
Ask anything. Man, we had a ton of questions come in.
There was no stopping the questions. So
yeah, thank you guys for all of the questions that you guys have been asking us. It's been incredible.
Yeah, after about 30 minutes of deliberation, we decided. So actually, on that note, we really welcome, for those of you watching, listening, we welcome your questions. Please send them in. Just thegroveeasy.org/ask anything, and just type it in, hit submit.
Yeah.
It's super simple.
It's that easy. Ask anything.
Yeah, we really want this to be a time where, yes, we're looking back at the sermon. We're kind of highlighting some things. We're going to do that today. But we also want to bring in some of the questions that people have so we can really have a conversation and a dialogue about what's on people's minds, what they're thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're going to do, you guys. We're going to continue to debrief the Sunday sermon, and we're going to continue to respond to everybody's questions that comes in. So I want to talk about this sermon that Palmer preached. He, as you know, we're in this series titled Jesus Is.
Yeah.
And specifically, his message was all centered around the fact that Jesus is enough.
Yeah.
And I think that this is a message that could be preached 52 times in a year for us here in America. And Palmer he's led with this stat that it just doesn't even seem real. And I'm going to ask you a question, Scott, because I don't know what to do with it. He said that 84% of Americans give 0 to 3% of the tithe. And then he said 3% of Americans actually give the full tithe, which is the 10%.
Full 10% what tithe means, yeah.
Yeah. And to me, on one hand, I want to say that's mind-blowing, but on the other hand, I also get it because I'm an American myself.
Right. Yeah, so I know what it feels like to want things, to live for the American dream, to never have enough, to fall into that trap and that lie that if I get one more thing, if I make one more dollar, then I'm going to find happiness, success, contentment, satisfaction, and it's just not true. Yeah. It's just not the case. But it keeps us from then being able to give freely.
Yeah.
Because we realize that that's not, our stuff isn't where those things are found. And we know this, so we bumper stickers, right? Whoever dies with the most toys still dies, or whatever.
That's
you know what I'm
right.
talking about?
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
Denzel Washington has this line that he said, "You'll never see a U-Haul behind a hearse."
Yeah, oh yeah, perfect.
Right?
Yeah, good. Yeah, when it's all, he didn't say it, I don't think he said it this last week, but he said it like, when you're gone, it's all going on the front lawn. It's a big garage sale, all your stuff.
Oof.
It's just all going for $5 each. So
this is what it reveals, I think, about us as Americans too. You can say, oh, well, you're lazy, right? Just automate your tithe. It's not even that. I think it reveals that ultimately we don't feel like we have enough or that we are enough, but it's an onion, right? Let's peel those layers back. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, we do not trust God enough.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to.
Right. Yep. We don't trust him enough, so we want to have the security that comes, or that we think comes with all the stuff, whatever the stuff is, a certain type of house, the certain, 401k, whatever it is, like the security that comes from that. We're wanting to really manage and control our own lives, our families, our destiny, as opposed to trusting God with that. Yeah. And to be fair, that is a big deal. I mean, when you're talking about truly trusting God with my life, with my family, with our future, like that's kind of everything. Yeah. It's kind of everything. It's kind of a big deal.
Yeah. And I've even recently learned more about this too, just having my first kid. Like you've known about this, Scott, but even me, I'm thinking about how, wow, like there's only so much I can control about this kid's life at the end of the day. And ultimately I have to trust the Lord with my child's life because I can't be God for this kid, you know? I can't control every aspect of his future.
Right. Yeah. No. And the longer, you know, you're new to, welcome to, but yeah, and you'll just continue to learn that. There's less and less control that I really have that maybe I think I have, and you just realize with this child, you know, you're entrusted to me. I'm doing everything I can, and while I want to have control over everything, I don't. And then you kind of realize, and even if I did, maybe that's not so great. God, you're a much better one to have your hand on this.
I feel like we Americans love the illusion of security that this sense of control brings us. And even there's like very surface level examples, but like I learned in America, pedestrians have the right of way. If ever you're walking across the street, it's like that car better stop for me because I have the right of way. This is America. And I went to Haiti a dozen times my first 3 years here at the Grove. And I learned very quickly that pedestrians don't have the right of way there, that if you think you have the right of way, you're gonna get killed. A car's gonna run you over. And I just think that, oh my gosh, first I feel like, oh my gosh, we better give a disclaimer. America's the best country ever to live in. Like I truly do believe that. I wouldn't wanna live anywhere else, but that doesn't mean that we can't be mindful of the downfalls that this great country has.
Sure, yeah. We have one of, if not the best of the worst countries out there.
Yeah, there you go.
Best of the worst, like systems, you know. Yeah, I mean, none of them's perfect, and there's a lot of great things.
So I don't want people to think that I'm saying I would rather go live in a place like Haiti than America, because that is definitely not the case. But what a place like Haiti showed me is that we as Americans love this sense of control and also the overabundance of what we have. Because even in a place like Haiti, I was confronted with the reality that they barely have enough to get by.
Yeah. No, so fear and control are things that just drive us. It's what drives religions for that matter. But, so I went to Malawi years ago here with the Grove. And this conversation came up over and over and over. These kids were going out in villages, families literally living in huts. I mean, they're making their open fires for every meal. Like, it's like you've gone back hundreds of years, you know, it's crazy. They have run around barefoot, next to nothing in terms of possessions and stuff. And yet you see smiles on their faces. You see kids that are happy. You see contentment in many ways. And you can't help, especially as rich Americans, and from a global standpoint, obviously we absolutely are rich, right? You can't help but to be confronted with the idea of contentment, of like, okay, they seem to be content with having next to nothing. And look at everything that I have and all the stuff, and yet I want more. I'm seeking after more. I'm thinking this isn't enough. And so it's contentment. You know, we talked about it last week. If you didn't listen, here you go. When Paul says that famous verse, right, that it's on the refrigerators, it's on the pillows, it's on coffee mugs everywhere. You got it on your coffee mug here? No, not on yours. That's good. The classic, and it is a great verse, Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And when Paul wrote that, you know, what he meant, I'm sure, was this Super Bowl victory is yours. No, I'm just kidding. We mentioned before, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. So he writes that when he's in prison, going through persecution, not knowing what tomorrow is going to bring. And so what he's saying is, I've learned the secret of contentment. It's Christ, I can do all things through him. And so that's a secret.
Yeah, it's the secret, and it's also so simple. And I really do feel like we complicate things, but this reveals to us the fact that enough is the key to contentment. And when I say we, I really mean me. When I say Americans, I mean me. We will never be content as long as we're looking to things to make us content. And I feel like a lot of us spend our entire lives looking to things, whether it's a salary, it's a better paying job, it's a bigger house, whatever it is.
Right.
As long as we look to those things, you just juxtaposed my situation with Malawi. They are content. It's called the warm heart of Africa. A lot of times I'm not content in my life because I'm caught up in this American trap where I'm pursuing the American dream. And every single time, Scott, I'm telling you, like, yes, I have financial goals. I remember being in my early 20s thinking, wow, if I just made that amount, I would be more than content. And guess what? 8 years later, I'm making that amount and I'm like, I need double. Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And as long as we look to these external things to make us content, we will never be content.
Because it's not about the stuff. And that's what the Haiti and the Malawi like perspectives that we brought into this conversation like teach us, in what they, in many ways, I'd say sort of like prove.
Yeah.
It's the stuff doesn't bring contentment. And Paul's, going back to Paul's story, I've learned I can do all things. I've learned the secret of contentment, right? And his situation was horrible. So it's not, the stuff doesn't bring us peace and contentment and security. Like you said, it's all an illusion. So there's something else going on in us that our heart and soul longs for and needs, that maybe if we get that and connect that with the deepest part of who we are, we can get to a place where we can really agree with that message on Sunday of saying, yep, this is enough.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm at peace. I don't need more.
Yeah.
I'm content.
That's right. That's right. Palmer shared from Luke chapter 12, specifically verses 13 to 21, and I'm just going to paraphrase and summarize, but it's the parable of the rich fool. And I love that those two words go together for Jesus. It's the parable of the rich fool. And it's this classic. It's so funny that this was written 2,000 years ago, but it directly correlates to us right now, 2023. This rich fool had spent his entire life busting his tail, like working as hard as he could, acquiring as much grain, which grain equated to money, and he filled up a barn, and the barn was so full, he's like, I need a bigger barn. And so he said, I'll build a bigger barn, and I'll fill that, and then basically I'm gonna ride off into the sunset. And he said, I'll be chilling for the rest of my life. My IRA Roth is maxed out, I'm making enough to live off of that now, and I'm gonna sail into the sunset. And God says, you fool, tonight your life will be demanded from you. And I'm just like, what do we do with that?
Yeah, you're right. Well, and you said something that when you started this about how this would apply today and stuff. Absolutely. What's really scary about this entire conversation is that it's not about those people.
It's not. Yeah, I want it to be about those people.
I'd like to think like, yeah, no, Jesus, I have you, and I've learned the secret of contentment too, and you're enough for me. But really, this is happening all the time in the Gospels with Jesus. We think it's what he's saying. Even conversations with his disciples, we think that it's often about somebody, some mystery person out there, right? But so much of it, it's them, right? I mean, it's me. So what I'm getting at simply is when I read these words specifically and others, I shouldn't be thinking like, no, I'm good. I have Jesus. I got it all figured out. I'm with you, Jesus. Yeah. Other people need to, no, I need to take this to heart.
Yeah.
I need to look at how am I storing up in a way? How am I, it's some consciously, subconsciously, whatever, finding some security in that. And I can say, Jesus, you're enough. But do I really believe that stuff? Or is the fact that and again, there's wisdom in planning, there's wisdom in saving. So I'm not writing all that off. There's wisdom in that. And obviously we can even go to Proverbs in places where we see that like clearly. So there's wisdom in that, but there's also a heart issue. And making it about me, I don't want to think that my heart is always in the right place, that I'm always trusting the way that I should, that I'm giving God full control, like we're talking about, but other people need to hear this stuff. Like, no, and I need to hear this stuff.
I told my brother today in a phone conversation this morning, I said, I have people in my life that, this is me just being honest and real and raw here. And if some of these friends end up listening to this podcast, then I'm probably going to be in trouble, but maybe it'll make for a good conversation.
Yeah, it's the Growth Podcast. It's honest.
That's right.
And real. It's just,
there are people in my life that I see they're living a way that I know they'll regret. And I'm trying to navigate how to have that conversation with them. I've got friends that care a lot about their job and a lot about making money, so much so that they sacrifice time with their family. And I told my brother, I said, I'm praying about having a conversation with these people. And I said, I would want you or anyone to be able to have this conversation with me, even if it hurt my feelings, even if it hurt my heart. As long as I know that you love me, even if it's hard to hear, I want to be someone that hears that stuff. Because the moment you just said that we're in a place where we don't hear it, that's where I feel like we're just sleepwalking, or we're literally just walking towards a cliff and we don't even realize it.
Right.
You know?
Well, and, cue up, in walk Pharisees and religious leaders. That was them.
Yeah.
That was them.
Yeah.
I mean, they weren't hearing it. And Jesus was saying it over, and they missed it. And now, in walk me. I'm a religious leader. Yeah. I'm a pastor. So are you. So you're with me.
Sucks.
So, this is one of the, this is side topic, but this is one of the things that I'm just starting to do kind of in a new, fresh way. It relates to this topic, but this is a much broader thing, is I want to read the Gospels. I want to read the New Testament, and the stuff that is said, especially some of the hard things, the challenges, I want to be like, yeah, I'm the one that needs to hear this stuff. Yeah. For a long time, I've thought and kind of gone to the place of I'm pretty good because I do believe in Jesus, because I do trust in him. And that's great, obviously. And of course there's something, but I don't see myself as the one that really needs to often hear these words.
Right. Where we fall into a very dangerous trap is thinking we're the ones that need to prepare the message for those people to hear.
Yeah.
When in reality, we are also the ones that need to hear.
So
and then we bring this before our community and we say, listen, like we all need to hear this.
Right. But it's instead of my job to make sure other people hear this, no, I need to be the first one hearing this and listening to this and saying, okay, what do I need to change?
And what's really cool is directly after that parable of the rich fool, where you see that this person was so fixated on acquiring enough security to be able to ride off into the sunset. Jesus then ends that parable with saying to his disciples, he says, I tell you, don't worry about your life, what you will eat. Don't worry about your body, what you'll wear, for life is more than food and the body's more than clothes. And this is where he says, consider the birds. They don't sow or reap. They have no storeroom or no barn, yet God feeds them. How much more valuable are you than the birds? And then he says this famous verse of, who of you by worrying can add a single hour to your life? Yeah. That I feel like is the secret to contentment right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A raw, vulnerable trust, believing
That's it.
You are my provider. You're a good God.
Totally.
So it comes back to yes, our heart issues and what's going on at a soul level, but also how we view God. Because it's only, you really got to view God as a good, loving, trustworthy God who knows you and sees you, values you, cares about you in order to do that.
And I think that we have answered even our own questions, because we said as long as you're worrying about the things or the stuff, you're never going to be content. And even what Jesus is trying to get across to his disciples and to anybody that will listen is we think that it's a physical problem. We think if I get this physical money, I will be more secure. If I get this house, I'll be more stable. My family will be okay. And I love how Jesus kind of says in John chapter 6, verse 35, he says, I'm the bread of life. Whoever comes to me won't be hungry. And what Jesus is telling everybody who will listen is he's saying you're fixated on the physical. And you think that this is a physical problem when really it's a spiritual problem. And as long as you're fixated on the things, you're going to be stuck in this realm of it's a physical problem.
And therefore it's never enough. I always need more.
It's never enough.
Yeah.
And we have to, when we encounter Jesus, we're confronted with the reality that it's a spiritual problem. It's a soul level problem. And you said that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the fact that Jesus said, I'm the bread of life, some people get hung up on that, and they did. They're like, he wants us to eat his flesh. In a later passage, they're like, this guy's crazy. Like, what is he talking about? And Jesus is saying, it's a spiritual problem. I need you guys to wake up to that reality. Right. And your soul will never be at rest until it finds its rest in me. Yeah. Right? Who said that? Augustine, I think he said that.
Oh, I thought you were going to say me, but yeah. Augustine sounds right.
Yes.
That sounds about right.
And it's true, man. Like,
yeah.
It's not a physical problem, it's a spiritual problem. And it affects every aspect of our life.
Yeah. You know, and part of the irony in that too, just to take of how the problem compounds itself, is when we do think, hey, if I get this or that, then there's security, there's right. So that's the stuff, and we don't realize it's a soul thing. Not only are we looking to those things to satisfy us, bring us contentment, right? Do all that for us. But then we also start to view God and treat God and interact with God as if it's his job to get us those things, so it skews our whole relationship with him. We're not even able to even come to him and be with him and trust him and interact with him and enjoy him the way that we're meant to be, because we're sort of using him as the one to get us these things. And maybe we even justify it by saying, I'll be a good person. I'll obey you. I'll do what you say. So that way I get these things to bring me this security, to make me feel content. And it's just, it just compounds.
Well, and what's it about? You just said it. For you in that pursuit, it's about the things. Mm-hmm. And I love this. Even in John, over and over again, he calls miracles signs. Mm-hmm. It's the only gospel where he calls the miracles signs. Right. And I was even talking to my college students about this. I'm like, what is a sign? They're like, oh, it points you in the right direction. I'm like, okay, so where does a sign lead you? To your final destination, wherever you're looking to go. And I think that's so funny that Jesus used the word signs for miracles, because there was a group of people that followed Jesus for what he could do for them, for the things that he could do for them. Yeah. And eventually Jesus confronted them and he's like, you're not following me for me. You're following me for what I can do for you because you saw the signs that I performed. But you're not realizing that the signs that I gave you, or the miracles I performed, were to lead you to the very one who could satisfy you, heal you, save you. And so that is truly what it's all about. Over and over again. Great word. I think what we realize too is I want to leave people with action steps. In the very beginning, we read those stats of only 3% of people give the full tithe. Number one, this is for us. I know there's been seasons in my life where I haven't given the full tithe. I haven't. Like, there's been hard seasons where I'm like, all right, like, I'll sacrifice here, which is awful. It's revealing that I don't trust the Lord, and that's me being vulnerable. Yeah. So number one, it's like, what can we do to remedy this this problem of a lack of trust in God? Number one, we need to seriously contemplate with your spouse, with yourself. Are you giving the full tithe of what God has already blessed you with? That's number one action item. Where are you at on that 10%? Right. Because anything less than 10 is showing that you just really don't trust the Lord. There's no way around it. It's
a trust issue. Yeah. And if we can see it that way and not see it as dollar signs and numbers, but see it as a trusting issue, that's a key thing that's got to happen. Because, I mean, let's be honest again, I mean, the reality is that we start having the conversation and it's dollar signs, it's bills, it's what I owe this, and I get it. It's because we do get it. I mean, I have all the bills and all this as well, all that. So absolutely, but we do need to realize, oh, this is a trust issue. Let's really start there.
Yeah. Yep. And even for us, it's like, we don't want you to give so that the church has more money. We want you to give so that you can live a faith-filled life. That's why we want you to give. Right? Yes. So number one, it's like, get honest with yourself and your spouse about where your tithe is at. That's the number one action item. And then number two, even just talking about how you want to start reading the Gospels differently, and it's not necessarily for other people, it's for yourself. I think that we need people in our life that can speak very transparently to us about areas where we may be veering off course. We have to.
Yeah.
Like we need to almost expect that our friends or our closest accountability, we need to say, hey, I need this to sting a little bit. Lay it on me. Where, in what areas of my life do you see that I'm kind of walking off track?
Right.
Hit me with it. I need it. You know?
Yeah, and for some people, it's even hard just having the right person to do that. But pray for it.
Yeah.
Look for it. Ask someone for it. You have to just kind of step into it.
And trust that they want what's best for you. They're not
Yeah. Pick someone that has that, and then try it and see what happens. Yeah. In both of those things, I just add to that along those lines, like wherever you are, then if we're talking about trusting God and finding contentment in Him, and it comes back to the tithing thing, if it's talking about people speaking into their lives, wherever you are, just take the next step. So, man, like, with the giving thing, if you're not giving anything, I get it. Jump into 10% to next Sunday, right? That's going to be huge. Okay, fine. But go to 1, then, or if you're at 3, go to 4. I mean, if you're at 8, go to 9. Like, just take the next step, whatever that is, working your way there. Like, okay. And same thing with the people. Find someone. Just start with, hey, you're a friend, you're a good person. Can you pray for me about, okay, here's some things I want to work on in my life. Can you pray for that? And then maybe that'll lead to a follow-up conversation. And it can lead to, okay, I know it's going to sting a little bit, but hit me with it.
Yeah, totally.
Just take the next.
I told my brother, I had someone near and dear to me tell me that I'm the most aggressive person they've ever met in their entire life.
Oh, that's not true.
That's not true.
Come on, man, you sweet guy.
And you know what I said? I was like, I'm glad that they said that, because I do have a very passionate personality at times. And that can come off as aggression, I guess, to some people. I mean, not to me, right? But I was like, I'm glad that they said that. At the end of the day, I know that passion or anger, or like, I'm an 8 on the Enneagram, so wanting to defend people or even myself, it's like, I want to be mindful of my pitfalls, So even when people speak freely into your life, don't hold it against them and be like, wow, I can't believe you said that, The last thing that I want to kind of just end our time with is Palmer. He was talking about the miracle, the sign of turning water into wine. And he said that they brought the empty jars to Jesus.
Right.
And the last thing that I want to leave with everyone is, I heard this illustration of our life is like an empty jar. And what we do, if we're not careful, when we don't recognize that we're not enough. But what we do with our life is we go to people and we say, hey, will you fill my jar? And we take our life, which is like an empty jar, and we're taking it to these things or to these people. And we're saying, you fill my life. You fill my jar. And in reality, what we need to do is we need to bring our life to the person of Jesus and say, Jesus, you're the only one that can not only fill my life, but satisfy it completely. And then and only then can you take your life to other people and not say, fill it, but let me bless you.
Right.
And let me pour out the presence of God in your life.
Yeah.
So that is what I want to leave with everybody that's listening and tuned into this week's episode.
Love it. That's great. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full.
Amen.
So let's go to Him and let Him fill us.
Amen. Amen. Scott, thanks, man. It's always a good time.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We appreciate you guys.
Send in those questions.
Ask us your questions. thegroveaz.org/askanything.
There it is.